let's talk about the UK general election results. Now, overall, I think it's good for anyone who's progressive, anyone who's left wing, anyone who thinks that Palestinian, people are human beings. This is overall very good. And I'm going to be talking about the results, breaking them down over the next several videos. I will also be talking about the French election results, which is basically a parallel in some way to the rise of Jeremy Corbyn, because you've got Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's kind of getting a boost in terms of the electorate supporting him over the far right. And we'll discuss this as well. But in this video, I'm going to talk about Jeremy Corbyn winning as an independent. There was a huge establishment drive by the Labour Party to oust him from Parliament, and they failed. And this is obviously something by itself worth celebrating, because Jeremy Corbyn is a significant voice for anyone who's progressive, anyone who every single kind of issue, from whether it's homelessness, whether it's dealing with housing instability, whether it's dealing with the underfunding of the NHS, the fact that NHS is being privatised by the Tories or the Labour. At this point, Labour and Tories are two cheeks of the same arse, but with very minor differences. But so it's good that Jeremy Corbyn, and of course, he's one of the only few pro-Palestinian voices in Parliament. In fact, Jeremy Corbyn and 8 other MPs, 4 independent, 4 Greens, have taken seats from what would otherwise be Conservative or Labour MPs, which is excellent news. And we just need to work on this momentum, because the Gaza situation isn't going away, but also the failures of neoliberal policy isn't going away. The failures of pushing forward pro-austerity for the very poor and lower taxes for the rich, the super rich, which is being pushed by both Labour, which is a carbon copy of the Conservative Party in its core identity, considering that the Labour Party is now fully funded, for the most part, by corporations, whereas before it was funded by a membership model by people on the grassroots, people like you and I. Now it's funded largely by corporations, which the Conservative Party was historically the main party that would receive the donations from these large-scale corporations. Almost to the it's gone so Labour has lost all meaning of the word Labour, that it's gotten the backing, the morale support of BlackRock, which is a multi-billion dollar asset owning company that is buying up a whole host of things that are increasing costs for people like you and I, like housing. They're also implicated in the military-industrial complex and all kinds of nasty things, because of course they're in the business of making money. And capitalism, wherever it goes, it acts as a parasitic force on nature, of reality, of earth, of people, and it's generally pro-imperialist, pro-colonist. But to go back to the real success, Jeremy Corbyn won. And I'm going to explain to you, for some of my followers who may be disappointed with George Galloway losing. And explain to me why I think Jeremy Corbyn won and George Galloway lost. Well, obviously, everyone knows that Jeremy Corbyn is a household name at this point. He was leader of the Labour Party for 2 general elections. He's gotten the more votes than Keir Starmer did in this very general election. It just so happens that people, the whole establishment was voting against Jeremy Corbyn due to smear campaigns, pro-establishment, astroturf smear campaigns that have not been, substantiated, claims of anti-Semitism, claims of also, the issue of Brexit being a thorn in the side of the Labour Party. So it kind of like acted as a smokescreen for what was essentially the reality that Corbyn was a very popular candidate. You can't say that he's at all not popular, or he's supported by a very small cult, as I've heard from one of the Labour MPs. He's actually very popular, or his policies are very popular, and it's the media who's been grinding away at his public image in this public assassination, kind of like PR assassination attempt to destroy his image. But Corbyn still has a core, support in terms of policies, and people in Islington North know of him. They obviously know of him as initially a councillor, and of course, Jeremy Corbyn is not somebody who's an MP for the for just being able to debate in the Parliament. He's also an MP and also does the work on the ground as somebody who's worked as a councillor. Because of course, for those that don't know, in order to be a member of Parliament, you need to be elected as a councillor to begin with. And councillors are people who are unpaid for the period that they're councillors, and their work is to really be democratically elected because of their support in the community. And Jeremy Corbyn has literally decades of support and improving society in parts of North England. And so also being that he is near spotless in terms of his integrity, there is no finer politician, in terms of his integrity. That you can make an argument in terms of how he could have addressed one situation or another situation, but that's the optics, how he's perceived. But his actual principles have been rock solid. Now, George Galloway also has a sense of integrity. He's also rock solid in his principles. But George Galloway doesn't have that much experience on the ground, talking to people, being involved in the community, resolving disputes in the community, being attending people's weddings, attending people on the ground. And so he doesn't have the kind of the grassroots support. And he's splitting his time between him, being on online presence on his mother of all talk shows, program. And so his time and energy split. Also the fact that there's, a smear campaign on him from media establishment. The fact that Rishi Sunak, like a snake, did a press conference on the day that he was elected in the by-election. It just goes to add more weight of just a lack of credibility on George Galloway's part. But it's the same as what happened to Jeremy Corbyn, only that George Galloway doesn't have that that length of time involved. He's also not as let's say personable in the public spotlight as Jeremy Corbyn may be. Jeremy Corbyn, I'm not seeing him with any cutting remarks or anything, overly sharp. And so even people who accuse him of, anti-Semitism cannot really do so with a straight face. George Galloway also has this is really important for anyone who's watching. For us to beat the far right, we need to have a broad left consensus. And we cannot, follow and be part and, contribute to a culture war. So culture war in this regard is talking about women's rights or gender ideology, transphobes' rights. or trans rights, not transphobe rights. I don't think transphobes should have any rights. So he, even though he was for trans rights, he was still, using, kind of following a social conservative route, as somebody of a social conservative Catholic. And I think that is jarring. I don't think it's the way forward, to be frank. The progressive left movement has to be a broad church, and it has to include people in support of trans rights. And I believe very much in trans rights. And if you disagree with me, let's have a debate about it, because the issue of trans rights is an astroturfed culture war position. What do I mean by that? It's basically billionaire-owned media are using trans rights as a divide and rule kind of tactic in order to divide communities. So instead of us thinking about, let's say, Gaza and people in Palestine, or homelessness, or whatever these things that are actually meaningful, they're focusing on these niche issues like trans rights. And trans rights should be a given, because trans people are like me, you and I. And when it comes to trans women using women's bathrooms, let's be logical about this. Trans women are when they then transition, they physically look like women. So why should they go into men's bathrooms and using their peeing bowls, when they could easily just go into a cubicle with a lock and do their business? So why would that be any issue? In fact, there are unisex toilets all around the country. There shouldn't be any issue with that. And let's be very clear about this. The sign on the door doesn't really stop anyone from committing any crimes if they wanted to do so. So this issue of trans rights is really it's a smokescreen in order to divide, especially people who boomers, elderly people who don't understand what is going on. It's an upside down world. Reality is that trans rights are here to stay, and if we do, get lost in that source, then we are, our power is divided as the left. Then our fight for Palestinian human rights is divided. It becomes eroded. So we need to work together as left. And I think, even though George Galloway is an amazing orator, incredibly proficient, one of the best debaters I've ever seen, somebody who's an inspiration to me, and his foreign policy takes are top notch, I do understand how he could have lost for all these myriad of reasons. But I'll be supporting, watching his stuff, because I also see nuance too. I'm not going to vilify somebody for having takes that I don't agree with. But this is exactly why Corbyn won and Galloway lost. And going forward, we need to focus on the parties that can win a decisive victory against Labour or Conservative, and that's the Green Party. And the Green Party have always been they're pro Palestinian rights, they're pro trans rights, they're pro fighting against the fossil fuel corporations that are destroying the country and the world. And I think like 99% of my values align with the Green Party. So I would vote for them in the future. And we need more momentum behind this movement, and also independence, which I'll discuss in my next video, how the establishment really does not want to talk about the independence. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated.